Thank you, Ashley, for that lovely welcome. I would also, while everyone's getting settled, like to acknowledge the Gadigal people, the traditional owners, contemporary custodians of the land on which we meet, and I pay my respect to them and to their ancestors and to all the Aboriginal people of the Sydney Basin. And thank you for joining us here at the Art Gallery of New South Wales for this very special Art After Hours. And I know Brenda Croft wants to talk very much about the backstory and the politics and the history behind the images down in the exhibition on the lower level in Urabana. But I just want to begin by acknowledging Brenda, whose curatorial vision over the years has done something extraordinary for the reception of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander art in this country. And I mean, I could list her exhibition history, but I won't. Of course, she was Senior Curator of Indigenous Art at the National Gallery of Australia and was responsible for growing the National Collection to the state that it's in now, one of the largest collections of Aboriginal art in this country. But some of the highlights, I think, the Key Bronlee Commission in Paris, the Namatjira retrospective, of course the Michael Riley exhibition, Sights Unseen, which had a very deep effect on me when I saw it in 2007. And of course the inaugural National Indigenous Art Triennial. National Indigenous Art Triennial, which was in 2008 at the National Gallery of Australia, and which toured the world, in fact. No?
Just Washington.
Just Washington. Well, the world outside of Australia. Thank you. I won't make any more mistakes. Well, you'll correct me if I make any more mistakes. Could you please join me in acknowledging Brenda for her curatorial vision over the years and for what she's done for Aboriginal art. Now, I said to Brenda earlier, because we interviewed downstairs just before for the show that I present on Radio National, and we talked about the images being, social history, documentary history, and you said something very interesting to me. These aren't me, these aren't my art, these are about other people. Talk more about that idea that these are historical portraits, that they're social history, and that they're part of our now collective memory.
Well, what I meant by that is sitting here, apart from Tim. But Tim was very much a supportive person in the background. I meant that I couldn't have taken... I don't own those images because of the people who are in them. And I've always felt that the photography that I do, I'm really lucky to be able to do it. Maybe I have a good eye in pulling things together, but I've also been really, really blessed with really good friends and family who've put up with me sticking a camera in their face or asking them to be part of some of the works that I've done over the years. And I just really, really want to thank the Art Gallery of New South Wales and Cara Pinchbeck in particular for pulling this group of works from 4 series together, because you don't get a chance to see them all, and it is like walking into a time capsule down there. But I don't really want to talk that much because I want the panellists to be able to talk, and I'd also like to thank the Art Gallery for allowing me to have more than one person up here.
It wasn't that easy.
I think it's really important that the people who participated in these series have a chance to talk about what they mean to them, and you can be really honest too. You don't have to worry that I'm here, and don't let Bonny distract you.
Well, Suzanne, on that note, one of the most iconic images downstairs. Do you want to grab the mic there and we'll have a conversation, a brief one. Ladies and gentlemen, Suzanne Ingram is in one of the most iconic images downstairs in the, I guess, the back room in a way, back room of the exhibition. And you're standing in Redfern. Tell us about the backstory to that image. Very early in the morning, I understand.
It was very early morning. I didn't have a babysitter for my young son. He's here with me tonight. He was 6 at the time. He's now a 28-year-old man with a 5-year-old son of his own that looks exactly like him. In fact, we were showing him the photo the other day that Brenda had taken of us, and he couldn't tell the difference, that it wasn't him. He thought it was him with his grandma. It was really odd. Yeah, look, from what I remember, it was never a question. Brenda, we always, well, I can't speak for everybody else, but for me, just trusted, you know, her eye and her vision, what she wanted to do. She also did another series with my family. It was just never a question, and seeing them again just today, just now, it strikes me, you know, that now that I'm older and can appreciate it a little bit more, how if those photos were never taken, you know, I mean, it shows a period of Redfern that isn't there anymore. So it really has captured something, and it was just, look, it was just something that we always trusted. I did anyway. I was like, yeah, okay, cool, you know, no babysitter, we'll just drag him along.
I'll get up at 5 o'clock in the morning.
We're not morning people either. So, yeah.
So everyone here obviously is a subject in one of Brenda's portraits downstairs. We might ask Bonny Briggs. Bonny, another famous image, you're with Matthew Cook, and Tim Bishop is here on behalf of Matthew Cook as well. But Bonny, do you remember that day that Brenda rocks up? It was a November, I think. It was a very wet November in Sydney.
I think it might have been before November, actually. Yeah, it was pitch dark by 2:30. Brenda had been trying to arrange to photograph Matt and I for quite a while, and it was like...
It just rained. It wouldn't stop raining.
It was, in Brenda fashion, it was like, you've got to get this done today. And it rained, like Brenda's saying. It was amazing. It was like almost as dark as it is now, and it was like coming on for 2:30, and...
Where were you working? What was...
I was working where I'm actually working again now. I've just done the huge circle at Aboriginal Health and Medical Research Council in very, very similar roles. So the picture means a lot for a lot of reasons, but it's incredibly interesting because at that time both Matt and I were working in the area of HIV/AIDS and health education and sex education, which is pretty much a part of the norm at the moment. And you know, I could never really see the value, or it wasn't that I didn't see the value, I saw the value, but I always kind of undermined what the value of myself, and, you know, like, because I can't speak with Matt and that, so Brenda wanting to photograph us it was pretty big. It was huge in the sense that, you know, like, we did everything together, everything. Sunday lunch usually or something. But anyway, it's amazing, you know, like I look 21 years now, to cut it short, like HIV/AIDS, and particularly in a time period for Matt and I to be doing that, you know, like we were pretty uncool, you know, like everyone else is partying hard, like doing everything, and we were giving out condoms and providing fit packs. Really, really like what some people would deem really ugly and really, really hard work, but incredibly valuable, and no end is near enough sort of thing. So for Brenda to take those photos of Matt and I, and you know, pretty much Matt passed away a couple of years after that, and yeah, and I look at that now and I see that yellow fit bin, and I don't know, it's like I'm paying homage to it in some way because of how important it is, and, you know, because of the seriousness and the nature of, you know, because we can't all be glamorous in our jobs or have what's deemed the very, very sexy pose or position or, you know, promos written for us. So I thank Brenda for that.
Am I jumping in there? What that started was, because a lot of sex education and protection education was started in the Aboriginal community, and that's where it was led. So because we were very strong about not rejecting, you know, our brothers especially, who were, you know, we were all very close. We didn't want to reject them, which is what was happening a lot in the mainstream society. So what these guys were doing was really right at the very beginning of that, and it's changed. You know, it's really changed society.
Tim, I might ask you, do you recall what Matthew said about the creation of that image, about how important it was to him in his life?
Yes, and just to make the picture a bit clearer, I was Matthew's partner for the last 4 years of his life. And I remember that day particularly well for many reasons. And actually it's one of the interesting things, I think about a piece of art or a photograph is that connected to that photograph, I have these couple of movies that just replay and replay. Like, I didn't go to the photograph, but I was there at the beginning, before he went, and then when he came home. And I remember the day, and I remember first of all just the idea that there was this photo going to happen for a biennale, and not really sure what it was or what it was all about. So, like Bonny was pointing out too, life was pretty whirly, and you were used to sort of, oh yeah, whatever it is, we'll find out what it is in time. But anyway, I remember him getting ready to go and going into the room to sort of work out his outfit, what he was going to wear, and he was going to, I was going to have a say or a check. And I remember thinking, I've got to really not be involved in this. I've got to really pull my self back and just let him go with this, because it's his moment, it's his glory. So it came out typical Matt, in 2 seconds. He picked the perfect outfit, leather jacket, the right T-shirt, looked fantastic, and off he went. And then you probably have to fill in for the photograph, but I then remember him coming home at the end of the day and really distinctively remember this very strong sense of pride. So, the message that I got was whatever had happened, it was a job well done. He was very pleased with it. Yeah. And there was also an important sort of thing attached to that I find particularly attached to that photo, is that one of the things he did say to me was that he never, in talking about when he had passed, that he never wanted to be memorialised, but that he wanted to be remembered. And I think that particular photo is just something that he would sort of go, yes, that's perfect, because that's how, it's his essence, I think anyway, and it's a way to remember him well. And look, I just wanted to add too that, following on from what you were saying, that there's also the relevance of that building, the Redfern Community Health, and his job was a male HIV/AIDS educator, I think particularly for youth. And at that time, so when I first met him, 1992, he would have been one of the very, very few male Aboriginal health workers, possibly I would say even one of the first, probably in Australia, but with that came a great burden. But these were, I suppose what I'm trying to say, these were the things going on at the times around all these photos and images, all these different things, like with anybody's life, all different things going on. But it was also, I think, we were a strong couple because there was a lot to deal with, but it was in a very rewarding relationship, and yeah.
Maybe a little bit of back stuff with that was, I was saying to Daniel downstairs, all of us, apart from Tim, who's an honorary black fella, we were all young Aboriginal people living in Sydney, and we weren't invisible to each other, but we were invisible to the rest of society for the most part around us. And so, particularly with Conference Call, it was about saying, we are here, and that's why I love that image. I mean, I love all the images, but that particular image of Susie, I didn't ever put myself in my images, but Susie was like the replacement for me, and the people I photographed it was like what I wanted to see. I wanted to see people I knew and loved and respected and admired and fought with, and got back to being friends with again, and the things that we shared, we are who made up this place, and we mightn't have all come from here, but we contributed to here. So yeah, that's the premise behind Conference Call series, if people haven't been down there yet. But even in all the works, like with Mary and Jody here, it was about seeing a mirror onto who I was and what I experienced in life as an Aboriginal person.
I was saying to you that when, the photographer, the artist, sees everything outside the frame. Their memory is composed of what goes on, the universe outside the frame, but the viewer is captive to what's inside the frame. But you do remember, there's an image of Hetty Perkins and her two eldest children. You remember Charlie. He's on the edges of that image.
He was behind me, watching me, which was making me incredibly nervous. He was watching me take the image, and it's like Jemmy being there with you, you know. And I felt so bad that you'd had to drag him out at 5 o'clock in the morning. and
with
Tim,
Mary, what was happening at the edges of that image of Mary, who's holding her nephew Murray Craigie in Campsie? Mary, where was that? Do you remember?
Yeah, that was in Campsie.
What was happening on the edges of that image?
I think I found out about it maybe the day before or something like that, and I must say
So
I
well
was
planned.
the baby of all this crew sitting up here. I was 19. And growing up in my youth, being around this mob, I had the best youth going. I had the best. And that morning, the day before I got told, I was hanging around the cross a bit around that time, and I think I was still a bit hungover. The next morning, I think I just got home, and then I was thrown straight into the photo with Brenda and the rest of the family that was there.
There was Kathy, who I was really close with, your elder sister, and Karen was there. Was
Yeah,
Karen
Karen,
Mia,
another sister. Mia, who's
here.
in the crowd.
is in another group from that series, and Crockett's little girl,
Yeah, Katie.
Katie. So there's all these they're like flashing past you. And I remember it was freezing. It was so cold. And Murray, your little nephew, he was really sick with a really bad chesty cold. For me, it's like it's yesterday. And he didn't want his photo taken. And you can see that in the way he's looking at you.
I don't really remember much.
But you look so beautiful. For me, it captures everything about how I remember you from when I very first met you, which was around that time.
Yeah.
I met you at the old South Sydney, the Rabbitohs Club, the old one.
Oh, yeah, the club.
And your dad was there.
No,
Kathy's dad was there.
Well, yeah, maybe.
And that's the night I met you, though. It's like these weird things about when you remember people. And I was so happy to see that image used for part of the promotions for this talk. And, you know, those kinds of things keep you connected.
Yeah, because we have the picture in the house and people have seen it, I think, here in the gallery over the years it's been up. And I've had people come up and talk to me about it, and it's a beautiful picture.
It is a beautiful picture. Jody, Jody Chester, what are your memories of that image of you in that series, which I think is one of the best series, Strange Fruit? What are your memories of that shoot? Do we call them shoots? We do.
Couple of glasses of wine. It was interesting because everybody else was dressing up as these characters like Billie Holiday and Frida Kahlo, and I was like, we were working on something at Boomalli together, and we were doing a lot of stuff on history, and I actually had written a paper at uni on Aboriginal history as well, and I was so angry, you know, there was this Aboriginal woman who no one knew anything about, and her name was Walya, and she was a resistance fighter from Tasmania, and I was like, wow, I want to make this woman's name recognised. So that's who I dressed up as, you know, and I was like, yeah, I always wanted to be in the middle of a revolution, you know, like my mum's been politically involved all my life, and she set up the first, she actually incorporated the first land council in New South Wales, and that's how I've been raised, and I've been in many political demos over the years, and yeah, and it pretty much I did, and it was the period of time, everything was happening, and the Aboriginal movement was moving forward, and it was a progressive period of time, and it's become very complacent and conservative right now, and I don't know, I wish them days were back, I suppose, but...
You raised a really good point, because I was saying with Susie, none of us are here by virtue of, you know, our own actions. We're here on the shoulders of other people who've been here before us, and they're on other people's shoulders. And your mother had a huge influence on my life, Jode. I loved your mum, and I was thinking of you with your family. I said, you know, Susie had to be in this series because her family played such a role in helping establish really essential organisations here in Sydney, and we might come from everywhere else, but the people who are on the edges of those images or who aren't in those images that we can't see, they're there. Their spirit is in there. And like, whether it's Wallia, whether it's your mum, your nana, your mum, Matthew.
I think also what's really important too is because we have different phases in the resistance, you know, from 1938, from well before mine pretty much starts with my grandmother in 1938. And to have it captured, because my children need to know that, my grandchildren need to know that this is what happened, and particularly because the 90s isn't terribly special, you know, it's not 1972, it's not 1967, nothing really big kind of happened, but 1993, you know, we've got the Paul Keating speech, and so that's an era which I think we're now able to reflect on as having, you know, a really strong kind of impact, because our parents are now in their 70s, you know, if we're lucky enough to still have them around. So that to have that captured is hugely important.
But there was also the issue, like I believe, like Paul Keating's speech was important, but like the first time Parliament House fences went down, like I was there, like they were all in front of you and they've just all barrelled over the, you know, and it was just amazing. Like and that was 1990 actually, that was over the New South Wales land rights legislation and deals being done with Nick Greiner, and I still remember it vividly.
There was so much happening with theatre, arts, Tranby, all the organisations that people were involved with and did things at, and we went along to everything together. You know, there wasn't a separation of, everybody supported everything.
I actually don't agree with that the 90s nothing was happening. I think in terms of social change, and you know, like when I sit here and I think about how important it is to have a person that's Aboriginal and identifies so strongly with what it means to be an Aboriginal person living today, then I think just knowing that that all took place in the 90s is pretty bloody awesome, actually. Like, you know, I did just about every protest in '88, and you know, and from the moment I came down from Moree, but I think about the impact that the 90s and the people that were in the 90s doing that from the 80s, it's pretty amazing. Like, there are quite a few children that have actually been born out of that period from the late 80s and the 90s, and if anything, I think they're our revolution. I think they're the revolution that, you know, like for most people, I don't know what you thought about when you were growing up and stuff. Mine was, I don't know, I found it really painful when I discovered that it wasn't going to happen. I could have cried. I probably did cry, actually, you know, and what I find really amazing is when I think about the Strange Fruit exhibition, Brenda captured me in a way that I never wanted to be captured. Like, I wanted the machine gun. I did not want that dress, and I certainly didn't want the black eye the day after from the eyeliner and mascara she put on me. So I did get a really,
But you look incredible in those images.
Yes, I know.
'Cause you look,
but the point I'm making...
You look vulnerable.
Exactly. And that's not what I wanted to be. But I actually, I'm really quite honoured that the way that, and like Brenda's saying, that she captured me in a really, really vulnerable state, which I pretend isn't happening most of the time. But it did, and it's probably the only way that I would have been captured, and it's like what Susie was saying, we trusted in the eye of the photographer. But it's pretty amazing to be in this time and to talk about the times when we were being photographed beyond our control, to use it to document us as a statistic, but not a citizen. So to have it in this light it's pretty awesome, and I don't think I ever, you know, I'll move on from here after tonight, and then in 5 years I'll think about these photos again or whatever, and I will feel something totally different as a result of how I've got to live with the experience of being photographed that way. And I think for me it's probably, the 90s was a crucial turning point when you look at all of the people that were driving the vehicle, like Brenda and Michael and Tracy and myself and Jody, talking about Wallia. She called her dog Wallia too. I think we should mention Wallia. She was lovely. But in that sense, because it was so important to reclaim the names of people, and it's like what we do when we talk about our families, and we pay homage and we hold that picture of our ancestry with such pride, and that's basically what's happened as a result of the people that got to be a part of the 90s. So that's my 70s and 60s, is my 90s.
But
I
art
love
is
80s
history.
too.
But art
That's
is
what I was trying to
history,
say,
and we were
yeah.
a part of that, and that was what was significant to me being in them photos, was that art is history. We hold on to, like, I go through the old photographs all the time and hold on to the memories, and like, these are the memories that we leave for our children.
And your daughter, who works here as a guide, who's able to talk about the works wherever they are in the gallery. It's amazing seeing her here.
And she lived it too, because she was a part of the gallery, and you know, like it was, they were amazing times, and the fact that every single person on this stage, we've all got strong personal ties from our families. You know, like Brenda even lived with us at one stage. You know, like yes, and Susie's mum spoke at my mother's funeral, and you know, like we were a family in the city, and we were, and like. When, like, them photos, like, we were invisible, like in Brenda saying we're invisible, we're not, we weren't going to be made invisible, we were putting ourselves out there. That's what it was about.
We are almost out of time, but I think, Brenda, what I want to say and acknowledge all of the people on the panel. You've created a social document as much as anything else. The image of Suzanne, for me, anyway, you must see it. It really is saturated so much with its time. But you admit that when you were making the photographs, you weren't that conscious that you were making history in a way.
I remember somebody saying recently, because I was talking to you about the Michael Riley exhibition, his portraits that are on a commercial gallery in Redfern at the moment. None of us were really aware of what we were doing. We were just doing it. And you were doing it because if you didn't do it as a collective group, nobody else was going to do it, you know. And I think of you, especially with it's the 50th anniversary of the Yirrkala Bark petition, and we were overseas with Dr. Yunupingu, who has just passed away, and Michael has gone, and we were at the Black Playwrights conferences with Matthew, and you know, just the things we were so fortunate to be a part of. And you didn't know, and suddenly here it is 21 years later, and it is history.
That's what I meant. I mean, what Bonny said is absolutely correct, and what I meant by nothing happening, what I was referring to was like there's a national kind of wave. We're not looking upon the 90s as this movement stage, and that's why it is important that it's captured, because it's there and we can now point to that. But you're absolutely right. Sorry, it's also, 75th anniversary of the Day of Mourning.
Oh, yes.
75th anniversary of
Wow.
this. So it's a really, you know, pretty big year this year. It's also the 20th year for the passing of Brian Siren. So, you know, a lot did happen.
Many signposts this year, and many signposts in the exhibition. Very bad segue. Many signposts in the exhibition. Brenda L Croft down on the lower floor in Yirrabana. Can you please join me in the basement?
Sorry, could I ask
in the dungeon?
It was just one important thing that I just really wanted to pay respect to was Brenda's own life experience. That, you know, very much aware through that whole exhibition and what people were doing was things like, you know, the loss of your brother and your father, and you know, and that you know, we were all around you at that time, and very much remember that, you know, that, So just pay.
I love yous.
Can you please thank Tim Bishop, Mary Mumbulla, Jody Chester, Bonny Briggs, Suzanne Ingram, and of course, the extraordinary Brenda Croft. Thank you.
And Daniel Browning.